Welcome back to the show. We're discussing how Israeli society is handling current issues ranging from a political stalemate following elections there and a frozen peace negotiation with the Palestinians. I'm joined from London by Amos, one of Israel's best-known novelists and social commentators. As we get back to our discussion, we have a call on the line from New Jersey. Budi, what's your question for Amos?
Yes, hi, good afternoon. First, I'm sorry, my English is not that good.
It's okay.
And I would like
Makes two of us.
I heard your guest saying that Israel is not a racist state. And I would like to tell him that I would like to hear from him to explain to me how it's not a racist state. I live in the United States, and I hear so many programs, I watch so many programs to help, for example, a person living in Russia whose grandfather are Jewish, and then they give them money and they help them and everything to go back and settle in Israel. In the same time, someone who is born in Israel, but because his race is not a Jewish, his religion is not a Jewish, then they kick him off of his house. He begs them to go back, and they do not allow him to go back. Is that not a decision based on racism?
Okay.
And he's saying no. I just like as a simple person, I would like just to get an explanation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Oz.
Well, there is a terrible conflict going on in Israel, but it's not based on race. I teach in a university in the Negev where 10–15% of the students are Palestinian Arabs and Bedouins. I go to a hospital in the same city of Beersheba where 10 or 20% of the personnel are Arab doctors. It's not an issue of race. And let me add, by the same token, there is no Jewish race. There is no such a thing as a Jewish race. Israel is the homeland of the Jewish people, not of the Jewish race. Jews come in every breed and color. There are black Jews and yellow Jews and brown Jews and white Jews. There is no Jewish race, and Israel is not based on race. It's based on the recognition that the Israelis are a nation. The Israeli Jews are a nation like any other nation, and they are in Israel for exactly the same reason for which the Greeks are in Greece. Israel, however, is a multi-ethnic and multicultural society with problems, with serious problems.
Interestingly enough, I note how vibrant the Israeli media is and willing to discuss sensitive issues quite openly. And yet when these sorts of issues are discussed outside the media in Israel and other parts of the world, any kind of comment that's critical of Israel is often labeled as anti-Semitic. And I wonder if, why this kind of strange system exists.
I will be very reluctant to characterize the criticism on Israel as anti-Semitic, except when it is a criticism on the character or the nature of the Jews. When it is a criticism, as long as it is a criticism on the conduct of Israel, I accept it as a legitimate criticism, whether I agree with it or not, and very often I agree with it.
There's been a number of reports in the media now that anti-Semitism is on the rise, and I wonder if you've made note of that or have had any experience of seeing that.
Yes, I'm aware of the fact that there are a growing number of violent anti-Semitic episodes in many parts of the world.
Now let me ask you to address an email that we got from Ariane Al-Fasid in Utrecht in the Netherlands, if I may please. Ariane wrote in saying, Oz twice changed his position both on the Lebanon war and the Gaza war. Will he change his view on the two-state solution too? I wonder, do you still feel the viability of a two-state solution?
Well, in the first place, I did not change my mind either on Lebanon or on Gaza. On both cases, I thought Israel was right to respond in a limited military action, but not in a full-scale war. I didn't change my mind on any of those issues, although if I did change my mind, I would not be embarrassed about it. The two-state solution, there is simply no alternative to the two-state solution. The Palestinians are not going anywhere. They are in Palestine to stay in Palestine, and rightly so. The Israelis are in Israel, and they are not going anywhere either. They are in Israel to stay, and rightly so. They cannot become one happy family because they are not one, and because they are not happy, and because they are not even family. They are two families. The only solution is a partition and a two-state solution. It's not about falling in love and not about starting a honeymoon. It's about a painful, perhaps a messy divorce, and a funny divorce this is going to be because the two divorcing parties are definitely staying in the same house and will have to decide who gets bedroom A and who gets bedroom B, and the apartment being very small, spatial arrangements will have to be made about kitchen and bathroom. This is very messy, but it's preferable to the present situation of Israeli oppression and Palestinian terrorism.
We've got an email that just, a question that's just come in from our live station chat room. It's going on the internet at livestation.com right now. And Omar in the chat room says, what does Amos think the Israeli government expects diplomatically as a result of its settlement activity?
Well, I think the settlement activity is wrong from the word go. From the very first settlement that the Israelis built in the occupied territories after 1967, Israel was wrong. I think building settlement in the occupied territories was the greatest mistake in the history of modern Israel. And I'm not going to defend that which cannot and should not be defended.
We have a call from Shikan in the United Kingdom with a question. Shikan, go ahead.
I would like to ask, sir, about the... we've been talking about democracy for quite a while now, and it doesn't materialize in the Middle East. Don't he consider that we should start talking about justice for all? Because if you remember, almost in all Arabian countries, from Yemen to Iraq, there used to be Jewish people there, lived there in harmony, in peace and harmony, because the only thing that helped that was justice. And now we see the reverse of that, because the Jewish people now are holding power. They don't want to give justice to the people, to the other people that are living in the Palestinian.
Shikan, let's get a response from Amos Oz on this.
Yeah, that sounds to me more like an exclamation than like a question. But let me correct you. The Jews did not live happily in Iraq or in Yemen. They lived under the Iraqis and under the Yemenites, and often unhappily. And I know this firsthand because I live surrounded by Jews who survived by the skin of their teeth from the Arab countries and fled from the Arab countries in 49 and 1950. 1 million Jewish refugees came to Israel from all over the Arab Middle East, and nobody stayed in the Arab countries. So they did not live happily under the Arabs. The idea now is that the Jews have the same rights as the Arabs. The Arabs has the right for a nation state, and the Jews have a right for a nation state. The Arabs should have the rights, the Palestinians should have the right for sovereignty, the Jews should have the right for sovereignty. We need to coexist on an equal basis.
We have a call from Michigan in the US. Mohammed's on the line. Mohammed?
My question, I was born in Jerusalem, and...
Keep going, Mohammed.
And I lived over there in 1972, and I got an Israeli ID. And when I took my citizenship, they deny my staying in Israel, and they say I cannot stay in Israel no more.
Okay, I mean that's a personal situation. I guess there's going to be stories, Mr. Oz, of these kind of situations where people have their own stories to tell. I wonder though, when you look at what happened in Gaza now, and again you expressed your disapproval of the extent of the action that Israel took. Do you expect there to be any kind of sort of knock-on effect, any repercussion that perhaps now it's even harder to find any middle ground?
Well, it is and it isn't, because both sides are exhausted, or so I hope. I hope I can see syndromes of exhaustion both in Palestine and in Israel. And exhaustion is sometimes a good pretext for peace and for compromise. Most peace agreements are not signed with enthusiasm and with delight, and not out of a sudden burst of brotherly love between former enemies. Peace is often the result of fatigue and exhaustion on both sides. Now let me tell you, what happened in Gaza is something which I don't even have to imagine. I have been through it. As a 9-year-old boy, I lived in Jerusalem, Jewish Jerusalem, which was under Arab siege, shelling, starving, and attack. I know what Gaza feels like, and my heart goes out for Gaza.
We had a live station question. You've touched on this already, but the question from Nisreen in the chat room on live station says, there's been more and more calls for a one-state solution based on equal citizenship rights. What do you think of it? I know you said that they couldn't live together, but if there is no other alternative, if a two-state solution can't be found, then surely there has something else has to be explored.
No, I think offering a one-state solution after 100 years of bloodshed and animosity is unrealistic and even dangerous. It's like somebody proposing that immediately after the end of World War II, Germany and England would become one nation. It's unrealistic. What we need is not a honeymoon bed together, but a fair, if painful, divorce, a two-state solution.
Just a quick thought as we have about 30 seconds to go. Do you remain optimistic, considering all you've seen, all you've been through? Do you remain optimistic there will be some kind of peace long term?
Absolutely. I know more Palestinians are now openly pronouncing the word Israel, which for many years they refused to pronounce, and more Israelis are pronouncing the word Palestine, which they for many years refused to pronounce. So I think there is a realization down deep below the animosity and the anger. Right. There is a realization that there is no alternative to a painful compromise between the parties, and I believe this compromise can take place.
Well, Amos, I want to thank you very much for taking part in our show. I hope to speak to you again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for watching. On the next show, Britain explores the intricacies of freedom of speech as a controversial Dutch politician faces a ban for his provocative views on Islam. Join us with your questions and comments. From me and the team, see you next time.